Blanche used to star, and so did my mother.
Looks like there used to be a plate on here that's gone.
I don't know
Looks like
what that is or why it's there.
some kind of plate,
A
like
plaque?
a brass plate or something on
Mm-hmm. Probably a military plate. See if I can remember. Mom? No, story.
Come here. Joey.
Here's another one. All these people here are relatives.
Joey, now don't get in there.
Now the Cooks, I did try to place them. I didn't remember if they were an old family or not.
25 years.
They live between here and Bloomer, over in the Durham settlement. Laura Durham married a Cook and one of the other Durham girls. They're real old families. Should be some of their descendants around somewhere.
What does that say, Grandma? I think those are those the ones that say Howland or H and M.E. Cook. There's his son, 7 years old.
Joey?
Mother.
Joseph? I was trying to think the other night.
Son,
Yeah, that's Uncle Dan and Aunt Lizzie Allstock, my daddy's sisters. Had some babies buried here. Here, Ben and Daisy's first baby, born February the what?
11th, 1917.
Yeah, see, that was before I was born. They had that little girl that died, and then they had 11 boys,
Yeah.
and then another little girl. Quite a family.
Okay.
And then to the north of us, from here on, that's Jones' property. Ralph, one of my brothers, owned 80 acres north of the road. From here on up, well, let's see, it's from right about here back that way. Because the road was right at the corner of the cemetery and went north over to that other road we passed that goes out at Biswell Mountain, the road through. And then right up there where you see those cedar trees, that's our home place, where the house was, where I grew up. And right back here, just a little ways, is where the slave cabins were. And last time I was waded down in there, the old open well was still there. When Hetty married my daddy, she had a family of slaves. And first thing he did after he married her was turn them loose and send them north. He just wasn't a slaver. He let her keep one woman that stayed on with him till she died. Till the one slave died, not me, Hetty. Goodness sakes, there's the sassafras bushes we used to dig up the roots to make tea. You ever drink sassafras tea?
Oh, yeah. This is about the good time of year for it, isn't it? The sap starts rising in them.
Yeah. There'll be a gate up at this end of the cemetery. The way I remember, the gate was right here.
Right at the top of this hill.
Yeah.
And the barn and the granary was on the opposite side of the road. And then on up from the house a ways there, about over a quarter of a mile, I guess, off to the right was the horse barns and the stud pens and things of that nature. And then on this side was mostly cattle. Had a Jersey dairy and raised red Durham beef stock too. Mama raised turkeys.
Uh-huh.
How far away was your little schoolhouse?
Hmm?
Where was your little schoolhouse you went to your singing meetings at?
Well, do you remember the crossroads we passed when we turned here? It was on over there a mile and a half. Let's see, it was a mile and a half from here. So it's about a little more than a half mile from that crossroad on over to where the store was and the schoolhouse and the cotton gin and then off round the bend a little ways is the Methodist church and the Masonic Lodge and the Eastern Star building across the creek. And he was in the Center Valley community. And Ruth Jones and one of my older brothers and his wife owned, well, for miles and miles over there. Her parents owned a lot of property and she was the only heir. And then Ruth bought a lot. They had a lot of property over there. And they moved to Witcherville when they left the camp down east of Greenwood.
On the way out, can we stop by that other cemetery where my grandfather
Yeah.
buried?
Just drive on up the top line all the time. It's artesian, I suppose. And the property up west of the spring belonged to the Allstott family. Lizzie Allstott was my daddy's sister. It was part of the Jones estate. It belonged to Dan and Lizzie Allstott and their heirs. I think you found all that in that atlas, didn't you?
Uh-huh.
You can go back and find it again if you want to, anytime you want to look at it.
Well,
most of it, you can tell where the families. Did you find that page that tells where the families came from when they came to Arkansas?
I believe I've seen that.
There is a page in there that tells where
Uh-huh.
they came from.
Uh-huh.
The Joneses came from Greene County, Tennessee, and while we were driving cars, I saw that sign, Greene County, and I stopped and hunted up the cemetery and still relatives down there.
Uh-huh.
And then I went to the archives in Washington, D.C. and looked up a lot of family records.
Uh-huh.
It's very easy to find. But if you ever get a hold of some, don't give them to your sister. She'll give them to somebody else. 20 years. There's one of the cedar trees. The house was right behind them from here. That was the garden off back there. I'll get over here and get you a few ticks.
Let me get out of your way.
I made sure what I ate. Poison ivy over here. If anybody's allergic to it, don't get in it, Joseph.
I don't know, but I don't want to find out. Stay here a minute. There's ticks out there.
There's the buck bushes. We used to get the runners off those and make baskets.
Yep, Granny, come here, Joey.
I thought maybe I could see the foundation of the old house. It was two cedar trees right out in front of the house, and they're not either one here. They used those tanks and plowed them down. They run over the house with them, tore it down with tanks.
Uh-huh.
Granary and the barns, demolished them. Well, wherever the foundation for a house is, it's not much further back in here than where I am right now because it wasn't very far to the road. I think we better get back out of here. No telling what we'll get into. Junior's story before he died, he came down here and was lumbering around back there where the cellar was built up. It was built out of rock, of course.
Uh-huh.
And found a bunch of cottonmouth water moths.
Yeah?
So I've always been a little bit leery of messing around back there.
Well, we found
Well, I didn't get very well.
I did.
You did.
That's all right. I've been wet all morning. Don't have water now.
If I knew where we pulled them out. of the house. When we was moving out from down here, took them out there and pulled them out under a big old oak tree. And I pushed the tree down with tanks, but I don't know.
Well, I'm experimenting here. I'm just
Oh.
trying to, maybe sometime we can do it, set it up like a real documentary. I'm just playing around with trying to do this instead of writing notes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah, it's a lot quicker.
Yeah, it gives you a lot more information too.
All of these trees on this side of the road, except that one big one there, have grown up.
Since.
Yeah, that was all barnyard. There, where we milked the cows. And rail fences all over the place. I wouldn't be surprised there's not still some of them back in there. We had 2,000 peach trees back, past where that first.
You can kind of see a fence
Second.
line back there.
Well, my brother died a couple of years ago, and he'd come down in here and he said some of those trees were still there. Pear trees and peach trees, apple trees,
find
still bearing.
a lot of pear trees out here, but not.
Yeah.
I don't know of any
Well, we
peach or
had
apple
lots of
trees.
fruit trees, all kinds on that big property. And
Come on, Joseph.
there was a house back here between where our house was and the cemetery that my brother built there. But they wouldn't pay him anything for it, so he had jacked it up and moved it out. They tried to tell him he couldn't. And he said, well, stop me if you can. He just loaded it up and moved it out. He built it and he took it. I guess it's all right to tell it now. They used to have decoration day here and over there at Bloomer. And people would gather and the camp would say that the road would be open. People would gather there for clear back to Bloomer and way down the highway, cars parked everywhere, and it'd be locked, the cable across there. So it got to be where they'd say, well, wonder if Chuck's coming, Chuck would come with his wire cutters in his hand and cut the cable down, and they'd all go to decoration, and got back, he'd splice it back and tie it back up there. That went on for years. Nobody would tell who did it. He's dead now and they can't do anything with him, so he was around. And they tried to tell him he couldn't hunt in Camp Chaffee. Him and Junior was off over there somewhere. Got into a wire fence and the gun went off and shot Junior in the rear end. Had to carry him about 5 miles.
When are we ready?
A lot of the boys that grew up down here did that. They just go when they want to.
Still do.
I don't think they try too hard to keep house. For their own
It's a big
safety, I'm
place.
sure they'd rather they wouldn't go in there at times, but
Joseph.
when you think about how little the government paid for property in this area, you wouldn't believe it.
I know how much they pay. I can tell you what they paid for every place.
When? Is there any certain time of year that you can send me?
Browns.
Uh-huh.
Here's Minnie and Ab Brown's marker
Okay.
right there.
I've seen a lot of the Wolverton names show
Yeah,
up.
well, now, these Wolvertons, the property on the left, just before you turn west at the crossroads, there was Tom Wolverton and his family lived there. Then you go on past Auburn, and over in the same settlement as the Oldhams and the Pinkertons, and there's Mont Wolverton. One of his daughters married an Oldham. They were brothers, Tom and...
I think I saw a picture of Tom Wolverton standing in front of the store in Auburn. Somebody had. I'm trying to think, and I think it was Tom Wolverton that
Well,
was
see,
written
the
on the
Oldhams
back.
run that store for a long
Uh-huh.
time. And then after they moved to Fort Smith, well, Ira and Lily Lamb, not Frank's family, not my Frank's family, but they were local. Let's see now, Lily was a sister to Minnie Brown. Lily Lamb.
Uh-huh.
They was a Methodist girl. Now,
Did they try to keep it arranged the same way?
that is my daddy's brother-in-law,
Pardon?
Carden.
Myra?
Oh, shoot. Phoebe. Phoebe Carden.
This is a Myra.
Yeah, Aunt Phoebe Carden was my daddy's sister. And the Cardens that you'll find around Auburn and Marietta and here would be that family.
Mm-hmm.
The only one I can think of in recent years had a nursery on North Albert Pike, and he's not there now. I've lost connection with him. I used to see him once in a while. That's Larimore there, isn't it?
Gracie.
No, it's McClellan.
Boy, I just can't read it.
I can't either.
Looks like it's been broken and mended right across the name. Did they try to keep the way the cemetery was originally arranged?
Yes,
Laid out?
they did. These old graves, they tried to keep it. They laid out a plot. Two of my brothers worked laying out the plot and then helping to move it.
And our Northwest Arkansas landfill problems, the reason behind new state legislation. Stay with us. 1940s, but that does not mean it has been forgotten. Some local students, teachers, and history preservation professionals are conducting a unique experiment on the old town site to keep its memory alive. The project was first begun about a year ago, and so far, several pieces of history have been found. Today was the third field trip for the students, and it took time to look at the remnants of the homesteads that once stood here.
And we're hoping that we'll be able to establish this connection between the natural environment, the way people use it, what they've left in it in terms of the record of their use of it and their lives here, with the documentary record that's available to support all of this and to try to give us more information about what people did.
Now, the town site of Auburn was begun in the 19th century. However, it was bought by the federal government and turned into the military training grounds of Fort Chaffee in 1941. Well, it looks as if the battle over the landfill in Durham will be decided by lawmakers in Little Rock, opponents of the proposed Durham landfill.
And this part here that's partially filled up, that's where they put the cabbage and potatoes and things that you want to heal out to preserve, apples and things to keep them from freezing. We had that cellar full of canned food, and of course back then you had to raise what you ate. around that spring was real smooth sand rock. Real pretty, clean, you could just wash them and scrub them, keep them clean, set the crocks of butter and milk and stuff to cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see any of those pretty smooth rocks. I'm surprised to see as much a little deeper now. This ledge seems high. But there was a ledge on each side where we put fruit and canned fruit and vegetables, and the spring was down right by that tree right there by that spring. That's right about where the back door was, back about right in front of Becky back there now. I guess that's those rocks you can see back there is probably where the door was. The foundation of the house went back that far because the spring and all this, see, was in the cellar under the house,
Uh-huh.
Under those two big back rooms. And that cellar was very important. And now the smokehouse was directly behind that end of the house, back just very close, and the storm blew it away. Just purely blew it away. Wasn't anything left. And after it blew the smokehouse away, well, the cellar was even more important.
Mm-hmm.
There was two big rooms from the back of the front part of the house back, and this up here was under the floor. Just you just sort of had to stoop and crawl up in there and put clean dirt and oat straw and everything in there to bury the cabbage and turnips and apples and that type fruit and vegetables to keep through the winter. And then the canned fruit in jars was on these ledges on the side. The dirt was all kept clean, and top part of it was skimmed off with a shovel and fresh dirt put in, fresh oat straw put in there, and put the Mama canned mostly in half-gallon jars. And you wouldn't believe how much fruit and vegetables that woman canned.
I've heard some stories of people putting up like 500 half-gallons of blackberries. That seems like an awful lot of picking and an awful lot.
Yeah, but when you have as big a family as we did, that wasn't a lot.
Well, was most of it stored in the cellar, or did you have shelves in
that's what the
a pantry?
Cellar was. And there was just a walkway, and the walkway was over on this side, and the spring, and you had to come on back a ways where it was cleaned up there. When they separated the cream, they'd set the cream buckets down there. And that spring was there all the time. And there was a pipe in the ground, and it came out back down there a ways, and it watered the chickens.
Oh, yeah.
And it never went dry. There was water always there. We didn't have to draw water for the chickens.
Uh-huh. So, but you basically, you had indoor water. It was just in the cellar from a spring.
That it was walled up with real nice, clean sand rocks. Pretty. And the water was clear, just as clear as it could be. Of course, it was taken care of and kept that way. But, well, this is the back of the two-story part of the house right here. And there was porches, one on the east and one on the west. From this back, they started at the back of these two front rooms. And see, that was two-story part.
Mm-hmm.
Big, and a chimney on the east that went all the way up to the second story. There was two fireplaces, one on the second story and one on the ground story. Same chimney, served both top and bottom floor.
Uh-huh.
And there was a big old picnic tree. Any evidence of that? Not either one of those would be it. We had walnut trees too, black walnuts.
Yeah, there's that one that this chair's over by is a black walnut.
It is?
Uh-huh. There's walnuts all over the ground.
Well, that was along the edge of the yard. We had black walnut trees there, and here's a shell of one of them right there. That may be the hickory tree, but it don't look like it. It just went straight up, just one great big tree. It was close to the house and kind of just a little bit past the front porch. There's a porch all the way across the front. porches from the two-story part back along the side of this 2 rooms back here. There was a porch on the west and one on the east. The room, these 2 rooms, see, there was 2 rooms here that was double-story, 4 rooms actually. And then about, I guess about right here back, these were big rooms back here too, and the cellar was under those rooms. But the cellar didn't come all the way under over to the back porch. There was a porch on the west side, and there was a dug well just a few feet from the porch. I mean, not a dug well, a drill well. Used a rope and pulley and galvanized bucket to draw up the water. Artifacts when we was moving.
That big tree right there?
That bugger's still there. That looked that big and old then. That's 50 years ago.
So, what did you do now?
We played with little Indian artifacts. We had little syrup buckets. And we'd keep that stuff in there and we'd play with it, you know, like kids do. Little broken pieces of dishes and things, and make playhouses. And when we were moving out, Frank and Lloyd, my brother, Mama and me, and Lyde and Bill, my sister and her husband were all down here. And Mama said, Bobby, what are you going to do with these? And I just brought them out there and pulled them out, right there by that old big tree. I don't know why I didn't want to take them with me, but I didn't, and I just pulled them out.
Yeah, a lot of what we do when we find, you know, material like Indian artifacts or even broken pieces of dishes and things like that, I guess,
well,
you know.
If you dug around that old tree, there might still be some of them there.
Well, it's important.
There's too many people hunting them.
It's important to us to know how they got there. That's what we're trying to figure out.
Well, now the ones we had came from that old Indian Springs over there by the old log cabins and the Indian graveyard that was up there just past it. That's where we got those.
Well, what about like the pieces of dishes? And what'd you do with broken dishes and things like that? Broken canning jars? How did the things that we find out here get to where they are? I mean, generally we've found that people kept their yards real clean.
In low places where the ground was washing, you know, where they'd develop a low spot and you wanted to stop the ground from washing, then such as that was used as a filler all over the place, I guess. Just here and yonder, I couldn't pick out any particular spot. But I remember that's what we did. We hauled them off in the wagon and just throw them in those low places. And then gradually the dirt would wash over them, fill them up, cover them up.
So you used them mainly for like fill, just to fill in?
Yeah, well, just to get rid of the trash and everything. My daddy was always a stickler for keeping the place cleaned up, and Mama was too. And such as that wasn't allowed to accumulate around the house and pile up. Not that it didn't get piles, but those piles had to be cleaned out first time that there was a rainy day or something they couldn't work in the field, or first time they got caught up, you know, well, that stuff had to be cleaned up and hauled off. Let's see now.
Well, that's very good.
There was a place, look, there's the cemetery back down in there. That loose wagon still goes through there. I remember we used to haul, but good Lord, where? I couldn't pinpoint to save lives.
Well, just how you treated the material, how you took care of it's a very important thing for us to know.
That's what we did, just hauled it off, and there would be low places where it was washing away. And I know we had some old bed springs one time, and we had a place down next to the creek where the creek was trying to change course. And they took those old bed springs down in there and staked them down good, and then threw trash in to keep the creek bed going where